Tennessee basketball coach Donnie Tyndall. Go ahead and hold it close, and thanks for doing this. I really appreciate it.
You got it, George. Glad to be here.
You're on the court, George. Well, thanks, George. As he mentioned, I'm Greg Pogue. I hosted the Greg Pogue and Big Joe show every morning. I write for Fox Sports Tennessee, and also you can still read me in the Daily News Journal, where I was the sports editor for 10 years. And it was during that time Donnie was the top assistant coach for Kermit Davis at MTSU, and being around this for a long time, growing up the son of a high school and college basketball coach, you can see who knows what they're doing, and you can see who, well, they hope to be knowing what they do someday. And right away, you saw Donnie coach. That's just what he is. Great person, everything. Even though he is from Grand Rapids, Michigan, and somehow got to go to play at Morehead State University. And if no one asks about his coach there, Wayne Martin, I'm going to, because what a really maybe an underappreciated resource in college basketball Coach Martin was. He decided, well, I'm going to coach. 24, 25 years old, he was a head coach at St. Catherine. They won 30 games. He thought he knew everything. Then he goes to LSU, and John Brady hires him. Kermit's there, and quite frankly, LSU hasn't done anything since John Brady's left. But he was there, Idaho, MTSU, and then he got the coaching opportunity. And I don't even know why I have this. Morehead State for 6 years. I remember I was in Gulf Shores, Donnie, and everybody knows where Floribama is. Morehead, I was in Gulf Shores watching Morehead beat Louisville in the NCAA tournament, and I had one for you, or several, quite frankly, for that. And of course, Southern Miss, what he did the last 2 years there, 29 wins last year, the best 2 years in Southern Miss basketball history. And in my mind, when I saw all the candidates roll through who was going to be the next coach at the University of Tennessee, the only choice was Donnie Tyndall. Donnie?
Well, I appreciate that, Greg, and you're right. The last 30 days have been a whirlwind, but looking back on my career, and as you bring up all those times and the things that were accomplished, the great friends, and obviously you're one of them, and memories that I've made along the way, it's been quite a path to get here. I'm obviously very, very proud and humbled to be the head coach at Tennessee. I see a lot of orange out here today, which is just awesome. And I'll say this, I'm not an arrogant guy in any way, shape, or form, but we're going to get it going in a big way here at Tennessee in the near future. And I know Tennessee is starving for that. And again, I'm just very proud to be a part of it.
We talked to you right after we had you on the show, and talked to you right after you got the job, and you said it in the first press conference, and you said it along the way, and you just said, yeah, I know you're not an arrogant person, but you've been asked, are you ready for this? And I thought the answer was perfect. You felt you've been ready for this a while ago, right?
Well, I have, and again, I hope that doesn't come across brash, because in my mind, I'm 43 years old. I'm the second youngest head coach in the SEC, but I felt like I was ready for this 3, 4, 5 years ago, and the right opportunity didn't come along, and that's part of it. The opportunity for some guys, unfortunately, never comes along. So I'm blessed to have the position I'm in. There's no doubt that I have a tremendous staff surrounding me, which is imperative as well, and we're excited and ready to go.
What are these, since you were hired, and we were just talking just a few moments ago, were you prepared for that part of it? I mean, being a head coach at Morehead State, obviously the success, but you knew your way around there. That was your alma mater. What you did at Southern Miss, those 29 wins, and CUSA co-champion last year. But this is a whole nother animal. Things like this, media, boosters, all different kind of things that go into it. How's that hit you these past, 4, 5, 6 weeks?
Well, I think the biggest thing, Greg, without question, has been the demands on the media, or from the media. When I was at Southern Miss, we beat 2 SEC schools. When I was at Morehead State, we beat Louisville. And so I think from a recruiting and coaching standpoint, I feel secure and that we'll do a nice job in those areas. But what's been a little bit overwhelming at times, just to be honest with you, is the media attention and the demands, because you feel like with the recruiting blogs and the message boards guys that want information, the guys that you've been buddies with like yourself over the years, that you want to give them time because they've supported you and helped you in your career, and then all of a sudden you spent 2, 3, 4 hours early during the day on media, and you're not getting to your recruiting calls till 9 or 10 at night, or you know, you haven't had a chance to watch the tape of the team from the year before that you'd like to watch. So that's been the biggest adjustment. I enjoy talking to guys like yourself. It's so important to get your message out there, and these message boards and rivals.com, they spread the word about what you're doing from a recruiting standpoint, which is imperative, but it's time consuming. It really is. And so what I'm going to need to do at some point in time is turn some of that over to my assistant coaches, but I just think early on it's very important that our fans, our boosters, our former players, they all hear my voice and what I need to say.
Well, and you mentioned your staff. I'll talk about that. Certainly Al Pinkins, what a great hire. You were together at MTSU. He has been the top assistant at Ole Miss. 2 years ago, Ole Miss goes to the NCAA tournament for the first time in a decade, in a large part. And everybody wanted to talk about Marshall Henderson, but those two big guys inside that Al brought there, developed, was probably a bigger part of it. Talk about Al and the staff you've put together.
Well, Al is fantastic. You know, what I love about my staff, and I'll start with Al Pinkins, is I want grunt guys on my staff. What I mean by that, I'm a grunt guy. I didn't get to play at Kentucky. I didn't get to play at North Carolina. I was a guy that was a bad player at Morehead State. So I've had to earn everything I've ever received in my career, working security at 11:30 at night to 4:30 in the morning in my first job at Iowa Central Community College, which no one's ever heard of, just to get started. And I did all those things with this someday being in mind, but it's a lot of work along the way without anyone really giving me anything. And Al Pinkins is cut from that same cloth. He was the guy that gave up a $40,000 a year job to come to Middle Tennessee under Coach Davis and start as a graduate assistant for basically $500 a month. And he did that for a year, maybe two. We had some movement on our staff, and Coach Davis moved Al up. He did a great job there at Middle Tennessee, moved on to Ole Miss, as you mentioned, recruited some great players. They won an SEC title. And I've always told Al and his beautiful wife, Kara, if I'm ever in a position where I can pay your big butt enough, I'm going to bring you on board. And finally, I'm somewhere where I could hire him away. And he's fantastic. He's a great recruiter, great with our players, got a beautiful young family, and just the type of guy we want representing our program. And then I have two other young guys that are similar. Adam Howard is a guy that George knows well, was a walk-on at Western Kentucky, wasn't a great player, but just loved being around the game and being a part of a team. And I hired him as my graduate assistant at Morehead State. Now there you make about $200 a month. And he grinded away for a couple of years, and I moved him up as I had movement on my staff, and he's just 28 years old, and he's a full-time assistant in SEC. But I was 26 years old when I was a full-time assistant at LSU, and he's every bit as good or better than I was at the same age. So he's going to be a head coach in the next 4 or 5 years. And then Chris Shoemate is a Kentucky guy that played at Murray State, a guy that was an overachiever as a player, a scrapper, and just a hard-nosed guy. He was with Mick Cronin for 6 years as kind of a graduate assistant slash player development guy, paid his dues, worked his tail off. I hired him last year at Southern Miss, and a lot of people might say, man, you're going to bring a guy on board with just 1 year of full-time experience to the SEC, but Chris is 32, and he signed 4 of our 5 signees at Southern Miss. Chris's guys, so he's a worker and a great recruiter as well, and that's my makeup of my guys. Hard-working grunt guys that love basketball.
You got to love it, a Morehead State Eagle hiring a Western Kentucky Hilltopper, and it's important to get that Hilltopper influence, you know that. And and a Murray State racer on your staff. You know, when coaches change, it's just a part of the business. Players, you know, although they signed that national letter of intent with the school, they certainly, the relationships that are developed with coaches, between family, certainly the player. It's not uncommon when coaches leave like Conzo did, players leave. You've had it happen with you at Southern Miss, now players following you. Since you've come in, 8 signees. Wow. I mean, can you name them?
Well, I'll do my best. And again, you know, I probably some of you want to know, Coach, why would you release the guys that had signed, or why would you make it so easy for them to get the release and move on? And I had a couple people tell me early, Conzo had signed 4 players, and all 4 had asked to be out of their letter of intent. They said, don't release them, make them come. They signed with the school, not the coach. But at the end of the day, I said, look, if these guys don't want to be here, it doesn't make them bad people. They only get to play college basketball one time in their entire life. Why would you make someone come to your school if they're going to be unhappy, maybe miserable, not feel comfortable? I didn't want that. I want guys in my program that are as excited as I am to be at Tennessee, and guys that want to play for me. So that's just the way we're going to go about it. And we have 4 good returning players, guys that have done nice things at Tennessee to this point in their career, guys that want to stay and see this thing through and build on what they accomplished a year ago. And the 8 guys we've signed, it's ended up being a real nice mixture of classes, Greg. We have 2 fifth-year guys, a point guard, Ian Child, and a 6'9" kid, Eric McKnight, that are going to be able to play right away with some experience and strength, which our team needs. Then we signed a couple junior college wing players, Kevin Punter and Devin Balkman, that'll give us some athleticism and playmaking on the perimeter, long, athletic, rangy guys that'll be good in our press. And then we signed 4 high school kids, and I thought we were fortunate to get 4 high school kids of this quality late. 2 forwards, 6'8" guys, Willie Carmichael, who I'd signed at Southern Miss, came with me. Jabari McGee is from the Atlanta area, and Al Pinkins had recruited him some at Ole Miss.